Hello Internet, Mango Thunderslice reporting from planet Earth on the condition of the human species. Today's topic is godly power in chaotic times. We've got some serious stuff going down on this planet, what looks like the beginning of some sort of civil war in the United States or race war, but let's bring some balance to the equation, shall we? Let's start by invoking the spirits of three dead men who know quite a bit about this situation. The first, John F. Kennedy. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. John Lennon. When it gets down to having to use violence, then you are playing the system's game. The establishment will irritate you, pull your beard, flick your face to make you fight. Because once they've got you violent, they know how to handle you. The only thing they don't know how to handle is nonviolence and humor. And finally, Malcolm X. The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent. And that is power, because they control the minds of the masses. So, we have lived in a police state since September 11, 2001. If you didn't notice that, well, think about it and you'll realize that it is a fact. We effectively have a federalized police force. All of the local and state police entities have been given military equipment. They all now wear the same uniforms, which are very tactical in nature, using Kevlar and weapons of war. They've got, armored vehicles on the streets. Basically, they have access to all of the surplus equipment from the military-industrial complex. So when people of color aren't getting blown up, in other continents and countries, they give all those weapons to the police here in the United States so they can use them here on the citizens, yeah. And we have lived in a financial oligarchy since December 23rd, 1913, which was the passage of the Federal Reserve Act. So this is very key because the reason that we are having so many violent outbreaks in this country, despite the declining trend in violent crime, we are having a lot of flare-ups and crazy events, and a lot of this has to do with the fact that we as a people are waking up to the fact that our economy and our government and our whole society is basically orchestrated and controlled by a select group of people, a very small group of people relative to the whole human species. And they control the media, and they control the banks, and they control these major corporations that basically, all of it comes together to make it so that we have less power as a people. They've debased our money, which affects all of us, of all colors. We used to have a very powerful country and a very powerful economy, but they've basically stolen all the money through the hidden tax of inflation. Just by printing money, they've basically robbed us all. So there's a reason everybody's angry, and despite some pathetic New York Times columnists, and other just lackeys of the New World Order saying that, we need to deal with this anger. This anger as a species is very bad. You know what? Anger is a righteous phenomenon when it's in response to true injustice, okay? So there is a role for anger to be played here. All right, we are presently facing down the collapse of the imperial state. This imperial state has enslaved blacks and Celts and people all over the world, Asians, all right, they have killed and enslaved our people. We are all brothers of the human species. They have killed and enslaved us for centuries, okay? And we've been fighting this struggle together against the imperial state. And we are now in a very critical stage that many have been waiting for not just hundreds, but thousands of years. The desperate ploy being played right now, the card being played, is the race war card. Basically, they're going to try as best they can to divide us right now, because this is the most critical moment in history for the American people to actually, at least as best they can, stand united in truth and defense of their own sovereignty against the encroach of the imperial state. We are all on the same team in this struggle, okay? We are not, this is not about black versus white, okay? This really is just, we are all cannon fodder to the state. They don't care about any of us. None of these politicians, they're all just liars, pathological, sociological liars. And we need to recognize that it's not going to come from government. The solution is not going to come from government. It simply can't. These are the people who made the problems for us. They're not going to solve it. We need to solve the problem ourselves. And realistically, that's only going to happen when we start thinking in terms of solutions instead of the problems themselves. Let's not do their work for them and divide ourselves. Let's stand firm as a phalanx, as a spiritual military unit, and hold rank against these people when they're trying to divide us, okay? So let's start off with, the cops, okay? Cops, by statistics, they have a safer job than truck drivers. Truck drivers is one of the most dangerous jobs, even a soldier in the military these days with drone warfare and no real enemies except the ones that are made up by the imperial state. Basically, cops have very safe jobs. There is no real war on cops that can be verified by the statistics. But as of right now, that's probably changing. Cops now have very dangerous jobs, specifically because they have failed to hold the bad cops accountable, and now all cops are at risk of getting shot at some streetlight by some Black Lives Matter, activist who can't take it anymore. Okay, in failing to hold accountable the bad apples, you now have endangered the entire crop of apples. And now every single cop is at risk of just getting randomly executed because you guys have failed to institute the changes that are necessary. And I know that's not necessarily originating from within each and every police department, but it's coming from up above, okay, from the federal state. But you guys need to take accountability, okay? You need to hold yourselves accountable or you're gonna get capped. And that's not me, that's not a threat, that's just look at what's happening, guys. You need to make a change, and it's not gonna stop until something material changes. Okay, let's move on to the blacks, or the Afro-Americans, all right? I'm not gonna mince words here. If you can't figure out that I'm not racist, then, that's on you. Blacks have suffered the imperial state more than any other race. This is because it is the black race who will undo the system, okay? The black race has more spiritual connection than almost any of the others. And alright, look, you know who I am, alright? I'm from the ancient Celtic Druids, but I'm acknowledging that the African people were once kings of an ancient paradise, okay? Africa used to be a paradise, and it will be a paradise again once the parasites who have taken it over are desecrated and thrown off, okay? They are powerful. The voice of the black race is so powerful, and it's basically by keeping the race of of black people, of Afro-Americans in ignorance, they have stifled that threat, okay? Knowledge, as always, is power. Frederick Douglass, the slave, learned that he was a slave and learned how to free himself when what happened? When he picked up a gun and started killing cops? No. When he learned how to read. His mastery of the written and spoken word gave him his freedom, and that is a very important lesson to remember. The enlightened individuals of all races must awaken the rest, okay? If and this is happening, this is what's beautiful and why I'm not discouraged, but I'm just amplifying and resonating that same pattern that, whether it's your family, your coworkers, people within your social sphere, there's opportunities throughout all of life to basically wake people up to the fact that there is this global struggle for freedom among all of us that's happening right now. And when we all just do a little bit, that's all it's going to take to bring down the system, and so we can build paradise right in its footprint and have a beautiful civilization and world peace. That is happening. It will happen, and despite the chaos now, it's actually very close, so get excited. Okay, now moving on to white people, okay? I'm not trying to piss anybody off with this, but it is a statistical fact that white men are more likely to be killed per police encounter than blacks. Okay, this is not just a black versus white problem. I understand the context of where we are right now, but understand that white guys are getting killed too, okay? The main difference, there are a couple relevant differences. Attitude, okay? The average poor white guy isn't necessarily dressing up like a gangster, and wearing do-rags and, wearing gang colors. And, basically there's a profile that people fit. And, I mean, Philando Castile, the reason he was pulled over is because he was matching the description of somebody who robbed a convenience store just a couple blocks from where they were pulled over, and it looked just like him. I'm not saying it was him, it wasn't him, but the fact that you look a certain way, that I look a certain way, affects how we will be dealt with by cops and other people who aren't cops. But suffice to say, give them no reason, okay, whether you're white or black, to fuck with you, okay? Wear your seatbelt, get some insurance for your car. Like, they say he had a tail light out, but there's a picture of both of his tail lights functional. So there's a lot of weirdness to this story that I'm just going to kind of ignore, because I don't want this to be a conspiracy video. I want to genuinely bring a message to people that's, effective and important. But, also his girlfriend, I don't know, either she's got a very strange mentality or on a heavy dose of Prozac, or something about the video is fake, but she doesn't sound like a person who just saw her boyfriend get shot 4 times by a police officer. And to have a 4-year-old kid that doesn't start crying when there's a gunshot like a couple feet away, that's pretty strange to me as well. But again, let's set that aside. You can investigate that if you wish, but the thing that is important, whether the videos are real, fake, any of this, is that we stand together as a species and not let ourselves be divided by trivial bullshit. I'm not saying that, the killings of innocent people by the police is trivial bullshit, but I'm saying that the media-induced hysteria is trivial bullshit. There are big things going on, and this is a distraction, okay? So those who stand on truth and act accordingly will float above the fray, whether you're black or white. If you deal with people in a respectful and just mainly respectful manner, you will be treated leniently, okay? I have hated cops. I'm not saying I do now. I have hated cops with an intense passion, all right? I've been roughed up, okay, I've been thrown in a cage. I'm not going to describe all that, but I've had my experiences with the police. So has Space Panther, and her treatment was even worse than mine, okay? We have reasons to hate the police, but we understand as individuals that there's something more going on, and that's where we focus our energy. What's behind the police? All right, we need to hold accountable these individuals that are killing and just getting paid vacations, okay? But we also need to recognize that it's not just the cops are racist and that's the problem. There's a lot more going on. We need to buckle up for the long haul of revolution, and that implies getting your game together, not dressing like a gangster and going around and pretending like, oh yeah, I'm so innocent, and yeah, I'm being oppressed in this class struggle. No, I'm not saying that's not happening, but really, as individuals, we need to hold ourselves to a very high standard and make no opportunity for them to mess with us, okay? That is key. Do everything you can to not be placed in their crosshairs. Do not play the systems game, just like John Lennon said. Okay, some historical background information that is very useful. Obviously I'm not black in this incarnation. I'm Irish and Scottish, and basically some very, very useful context to this situation is realizing that the people who control this whole apparatus, the military-industrial complex, the media, the corporations, all of it, the money system, is that they fund and guide and manipulate their own opposition, okay? The English Crown funded and supported the Irish Republican Army, the IRA, during Ireland's war for independence, okay? And as a result of that, they were able to manipulate the dialogue and the narrative and paint the IRA as, whatever they wanted, because, and once you've got both sides controlled, once you've got the other side violent, now you know how to deal with them. You can crack down with even more imperial force. And this is a message to those, black individuals who are very enraged by this, understandably, that do not play the system's game. You will get crushed under the hammer because you're the nail that sticks up. So, again, trying to help. And similarly, the billionaire George Soros, if you haven't heard his name, he's a total scumbag and one of the elite group of cabal members who control the world through, media and just setting up organizations and just having a whole bunch of money to influence political races. Well, he has given millions of dollars to Black Lives Matter and a lot of affiliate organizations. His organizations are what turned the Ferguson event into not just a local kind of protest, but it turned it into this national media matter. Okay, we have billionaires manipulating the narrative, for the sake of their own goals. George Soros doesn't give a shit about you or me, whether you're black or white. These people only care about themselves and changing the world in their own image. Okay, so this guy recently, Ukraine, if you haven't heard what happened there, basically, there's so many countries he's done this to, and it's not just him, he's part of a group, okay, but they go into these countries and they create organizations of civil unrest, they foment and they prod and they poke, and they get these violent revolutions started in order to pursue their own geopolitical ends, okay? 10,000 people have died in Ukraine, 1.4 million displaced, thanks George Soros. And now the United States of America is the final battlefield. What changed in America, to bring it back, to allow the Civil Rights Movement, or the Civil Rights Act to be passed, was not "I have a dream," but "I have a gun." Okay, this part of history has sort of been whitewashed, pun intended, I don't know. They've scrubbed it of the influence of the Black Panthers and the armed resistance to the civil rights movement, okay, like Malcolm X. And basically, it was the police getting killed. It was these same type of just random police targeted killings that forced, or induced rather, Bobby Kennedy and his brother John F. Kennedy, who was president, to bring forward this legislation because they realized that you have to make a concession when it comes to this sort of open, violent insurrection. Okay, those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make it violent revolution inevitable, and they understood that, and that is how the Civil Rights Act got passed. This time, our goal should not be legislation. It is not legislation, but true sovereignty as human beings. When this goal is achieved, police will not exist as they are today, okay? We need defense. Let us be clear on that. But we do not need administrators of imperial decree. Cops must be held accountable for the fact that they are administrators of imperial decree. They are not defending natural law. They are not defending natural rights. They help some people on the side of the road, and occasionally they respond to true crime. But what we need to recognize is that the fundamental task of the police force is to enforce unjust laws coming from above, coming from the federal centralized state. Okay, so police need to be held accountable as individuals, but we are up against a bigger adversary. We understand that having a gun is actually more powerful than using a gun, okay? The sheer fact that the American people are armed is a deterrent to potential, invading threats of various sorts, okay? Back the Japanese general in World War II said we could never invade the American mainland. There would be a rifle hiding behind every blade of grass, okay? Armaments, private armaments, are what give us security, and this gun control thing needs to just fizzle and die because it's not going to keep us safe. Having more armaments in the hands of ethical, law-abiding citizens is what's going to keep us safe, and basically we can have private defense, whether it's just our community or our state or, basically what we have right now instead of actual security is three gangs, basically the red team, the blue team, and the black team, or the white and black team. Basically we have the Crips, the Bloods, or the Democrats and the Republicans, and then we have the imperial state, the deep state, and on the low level, as above so below, we have Crips, Bloods, and the cops. Okay, the cops are just a gang. They're just uniformed gangsters. They have their own little meetings and powwows, and they won't be held accountable until people force them to be held accountable. And, people around the world are standing up and reclaiming sovereignty right now. And when the people of the United States, who have slept for so long, start to resist the banking cabal that has controlled their government for a century, you will know that victory is truly near. The primary task for all right now is to acknowledge our fear and then obliterate it. We fear death, but to live as economic slaves is far worse. The dictatorship of money enslaves all people, black or white. When the people reclaim their right to money and trade, the drug war will end. When plants are legal again, yes, all these drugs are that they're supposedly fighting are just plants created by God, if you are of that persuasion. When plants are legal, only violent criminals will remain. And we as a sovereign people will deal with the real criminal threats, okay? We have ways, we are a people. And the parasites who have enslaved us all are going down, baby, they're going down. And let us now unite in celebration of our common humanity and our common struggle. Because if we hold rank here, we will see paradise in our time. Let us shoot cameras, not guns, but let us hold guns as well as signs. For protest is only effective when the alternative is physical force, as the Civil Rights Act demonstrates. Our voice is the most powerful weapon in any arsenal on the planet. But death brings only more death, whether it's cops or civilians. So again, do not play their game for the sake of all of us. The only appropriate time to use violence is in self-defense. Only individuals commit crime. Only they, as individuals, can be held to account. There is no collective responsibility, whether with gun owners or with cops or with black people. Okay? You can't go kill random cops and random people because some other cop did something stupid and violent and unjust. Okay? If your life is in danger of another person, that is the only time as an individual you are ethically using force and violence, is to preserve your own life against an attacker. So I'll close with one more quote from Malcolm X, who I happen to share a birthday with. He was born 64 years to the day before Mango was. Be peaceful, be courteous, obey the law, respect everyone. But if someone puts his hand on you, send him to the cemetery. And with that, cheers, wholeness, balance, and vibrations, my love, my wonderful brothers and sisters of the human race. We've got a beautiful struggle, but the prize is very close, and it is paradise on earth. So, blessings to you all.